Before modern skyscrapers, before cathedrals pierced the heavens, ancient Egyptians were already reaching for the sky with stone. The Great Pyramids of Giza didn't just appear. They rose from the desert through vision, labor, and divine purpose. These colossal monuments weren't mere tombs. They were declarations of power, maps to the afterlife, and messages carved in stone for eternity. But how did a society just emerging from unification master the logistics, belief, and will to create them? To answer that, we must step back to a time when Egypt stood on the edge of greatness, the dawn of the Old Kingdom. The unification of Upper and Lower Egypt under Narmer was more than a political event, it was a cultural revolution. With the establishment of a centralized authority, Egypt began transforming from scattered farming communities into an organized and sophisticated civilization. At the heart of this transformation was the pharaoh, a divine ruler who embodied the gods on earth. In this new era, the pharaoh wasn't just a king, he was the ultimate priest, judge, and commander. To serve him, an entire administrative machine began to take form. Scribes recorded every transaction. Overseers monitored irrigation, food storage, and temple activities. A tax system evolved, and with it, the wealth to fund royal projects. But power alone didn't build pyramids. It was belief and unshakable conviction that life continued beyond death, and that a pharaoh's soul needed a stairway to the stars. Tombs became elaborate homes for eternity, filled with food, tools, and precious goods. These tombs, originally mud brick mastabas, were the prototypes of what was to come. Then came Pharaoh Djoser, whose reign around 2667 BCE changed everything. Djoser's visionary decision to commission a new type of tomb would define Egyptian architecture for millennia. He appointed a brilliant architect and priest, Imhotep, who would go down in history as one of the first recorded geniuses in the world. Imhotep proposed a radical design, not a flat mastaba, but one stacked on top of another, rising step by step toward the heavens. The result was the step pyramid of Saqqara, the first pyramid, and the first large-scale stone structure in human history. It was a breathtaking innovation. It declared that Egypt had entered a new age, an age of engineering, centralized labor, and divine ambition. The step pyramid was only the beginning. Djoser's successors, inspired by his vision and eager to surpass it, initiated even more ambitious projects. Pharaoh Sneferu, founder of the Fourth Dynasty, became the most prolific pyramid builder in Egyptian history. His reign marked a golden era of innovation and experimentation. Sneferu's first attempt, the Medum Pyramid, was a bold step toward creating smooth-sided pyramids, but its flawed design caused it to partially collapse. Undeterred, Sneferu tried again with the bent pyramid at Dashur. This time, engineers began with steep angles, only to alter them mid-construction to prevent another disaster. The result was a pyramid with a curious sloping top, both a failure and a masterpiece of learning. His final pyramid, the Red Pyramid, was a triumph. With gently sloping sides and a smooth exterior, it was the first successful true pyramid. It demonstrated the Egyptians' growing mastery of engineering, logistics, and stone cutting. But even Sneferu's accomplishments would be overshadowed by his son. That son was Khufu, the pharaoh who would commission the most iconic monument in human history, the Great Pyramid of Giza. Constructed around 2560 BCE, the Great Pyramid stood nearly 147 meters tall, so precise in its alignment with the cardinal points that even modern engineers marvel at its accuracy. It's estimated that over 2 million limestone blocks, some weighing several tons, were used in its construction. But who built it? For centuries, myths of slaves whipped into submission dominated the imagination. But archaeology tells another story. Evidence from workers' villages near the pyramids shows that these builders were skilled laborers, well-fed, well-housed, and proud of their work. They labored not as captives, but as citizens honoring their god king. The scale of coordination was staggering. Quarrymen carved stones from distant sites. Sled teams hauled them across the Nile. Engineers measured with remarkable accuracy. Teams worked in shifts, likely rotating seasonally. Egypt had become a nation of builders, united by religious faith, national pride, and the pharaoh's divine authority. Meanwhile, surrounding the pyramids rose temples, causeways, and satellite tombs. These weren't just funerary structures, they were spiritual machines. Rituals performed here ensured the pharaoh's safe journey into the afterlife and the continued balance of Ma at the divine order of the universe. The pyramids weren't built in isolation. They were part of a larger worldview, a sacred cosmic order where every grain of sand had its place and every soul its destiny. For the ancient Egyptians, to build a pyramid was to participate in the creation of the cosmos. It was an act of divine balance and eternal purpose. Following Khufu, his son Djedefre and grandson Khafre continued the tradition, building their own grand tombs. Khafre's pyramid, though slightly shorter, appears taller due to its elevated foundation and preserved casing stones at the summit. His complex included the majestic Great Sphinx, carved from a single limestone ridge, a mythical guardian believed to bear Khafre's likeness. The last of the great pyramid builders was Menkaure, whose pyramid was smaller but exquisitely crafted. With his death, the pyramid age began to fade. Later pharaohs lacked the same centralized power, wealth, or divine authority to command such immense projects. But why did it stop? Part of the reason was economic. The strain of pyramid building on the state was immense. Entire communities were mobilized for decades. Resources were stretched. The nobility, growing in wealth and power, began building their own elaborate tombs, challenging royal dominance. And part of it was philosophical. Religion evolved. The focus shifted from monumental tombs to spiritual texts, like the pyramid texts, which began appearing inside tomb walls. The afterlife became more personal and less reliant on massive architecture. A new chapter in Egypt's spiritual journey was beginning. Yet, the legacy of the Old Kingdom pyramids endured. For thousands of years, they stood as symbols of absolute power, divine connection, and architectural genius. Even today, they remain the most enduring testament to human will and vision. The Old Kingdom wasn't just a time of building, it was a time of believing in gods, in rulers, in eternity. As the sun sets over the Giza Plateau, its golden light dances across ancient stone. The Great Pyramid still casts its shadow, just as it has for over 4,000 years. It stands as a bridge between heaven and earth, the mortal and the divine, the past and the eternal. But the Old Kingdom, like the sun, would not shine forever. Cracks began to appear in the mighty system: famine, rebellion, a throne in question. In the next episode, we will descend from the golden heights into a time of darkness, confusion, and collapse. Episode 3: Collapse of the Old Kingdom Chaos and the Rise of Regional Power.